It's May 16th, 1999. The visiting New York Knicks have the ball down 1 with just seconds to go in a winner-takes-all Game 5 against the Miami Heat. Maybe you know what's about to happen, but do you know what just happened? Do you know what happened earlier this year and this decade to make this moment possible and to make it meaningful? Before we witness a historic NBA event, let's rewind. We're going to get into what makes this series unusual, but first we must acknowledge that these two teams know each other as well as any two rivals ever have. It starts right here, with Miami coach Pat Riley and New York coach Jeff Van Gundy. Riley spent the 80s as the hottest coach in the NBA, winning 4 championships with the Lakers of Magic, Kareem, and Worthy. In the 90s, he found a new challenge, taking over as head coach of the Knicks, a team that won consistently but always lagged behind the Eastern Conference Titans Riley's Lakers had been battling in the finals. In his new gig, Riley inherited a young star center, Patrick Ewing, and a precocious young assistant, Jeff Van Gundy. Even with their new hotshot coach, the Knicks fell short. A new Eastern Conference Titan, the Bulls, led by Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson, repeatedly snuffed out their finals aspirations. When MJ retired to play baseball, Hakeem and the Rockets stuffed the Knicks in the '94 finals. And once the Pacers broke the Knicks' hearts in '95, Riley bailed for a new challenge, one that presented him more power and money, coach and president of the Miami Heat. He made an instant impact, acquiring star center Alonzo Mourning, then making a trade to pair Mourning with a star point guard, Tim Hardaway. Mourning had a rivalry with Ewing, who'd helped recruit him into the brotherhood of great Georgetown big men. So there was another connection between the Knicks and Heat. And the connections only multiplied in 1996 when New York made Van Gundy, Riley's former assistant, their head coach, while Van Gundy's big brother Stan became Riley's assistant in Miami. Meanwhile, spurned by Michael Jordan and some other big-name free agents, the Knicks made Allen Houston and Larry Johnson their big offseason acquisitions in the summer of '96. Johnson and Mourning had been teammates in Charlotte, and things hadn't ended well there. Fate would bring these two familiar teams together instantly. Van Gundy's first full season as Knicks coach was a success. He and new assistants like Tom Thibodeau managed a tough, unflinching defense, one of the best in the NBA. The reward for their excellence was a 1997 Eastern Conference semifinal battle with the Heat. And it was truly a battle. The coaches knew each other's every move, and the grinding play fomented contempt between the players. The violent slog of a series climaxed when Miami's P.J. Brown wrestled New York's Charlie Ward, igniting a brawl that caused devastating suspensions. The Heat would eventually win the decisive Game 7 and advance. 1998 was similar. The Knicks and Heat met in the first round, and this time the old teammates Mourning and Johnson exchanged knuckle hugs in Game 4 while Van Gundy desperately tried to break up the fight. The Knicks won the decisive Game 5 behind Allen Houston's 30 points and advanced to lose to the Pacers, who would then lose to the Bulls, because that's the way things always went. And here are the Knicks and Heat again. For the third year in a row, one will eliminate the other in the final game of a playoff series. The coaches are the same, the stars are the same, the notorious fight participants are still here. But this matchup is distinct from those preceding it. For one thing, it's been relatively drama-free. All 4 games before this were blowouts. Even Miami's comeback win in Game 4 ended with a double-digit edge. There weren't any big fights this time, which means we finally have a series-deciding game in which no important players are missing because of suspension. So internally, it's a different kind of series, but that's not all of it. The situation of this series constitutes a ripple from some massive splashes earlier this year. It's the middle of May, but we're only in the first round of the playoffs. The Heat are the 1 seed, the best team in the Eastern Conference for the first time ever. That means the Knicks, even though they're here 1 clutch basket away from winning this series, are the 8 seed. To make sense of this, you've got to go back to January. That's when Michael Jordan, having ended the prior season with a legendary bucket to win his 6th championship, announced his second retirement. The Bulls had already lost coach Phil Jackson, who stepped down after the finals. And once Jordan retired, the team exploded. They traded Scottie Pippen and Steve Kerr, released Dennis Rodman, and started from scratch as one of the worst teams in the NBA. The road to the finals no longer ran into MJ and the Bulls. This marked Miami's chance. Pat Riley's club entered camp relatively unchanged, adding only veteran Terry Porter to their regular rotation. And they didn't need to change. Miami had been the 2 seed behind Chicago each of the last 2 years, and this season reached the 1 seed behind Mourning, the Defensive Player of the Year. This could finally be their season. The team hung an image featuring a Heat championship ring to motivate themselves. In a normal season, being the 1 seed would mean playing a relatively bad team in the first round. Only once before this, in 1994, has an 8 seed beaten a 1 seed. But the Knicks could do it right here. They are not a typical 8 seed because this wasn't a normal season. MJ didn't make his big announcement until January because that's when the NBA lockout was finally ending. This 98-99 lockout was the first time in history that NBA games had to be canceled because of a work stoppage. The season didn't start until February. Teams only played 50 games apiece. The post-lockout rush hit the Knicks particularly hard because their team had changed. 2 fixtures of the Knicks-Heat rivalry, John Starks and Charles Oakley, were gone. In their place were the newly acquired Latrell Sprewell and Marcus Camby, younger guys who barely had time to learn Van Gundy's system because of the lockout-shortened training camp. New York had one of the worst offenses in the NBA, and the new acquisitions couldn't really help. Sprewell, back in the NBA again after a year-long suspension for choking his coach in Golden State, promptly fractured his foot and missed a month of games. Camby was coming off the bench and not happy about it. He didn't get a starting role even when Ewing missed time because of an Achilles injury. Camby's playing time became a point of contention between Van Gundy and Knicks GM Ernie Grunfeld, and there were plenty of those. While the Knicks lost their way out of the playoff picture, management reportedly considered firing Van Gundy on multiple occasions, potentially replacing him with Phil Jackson. But then things changed, on the court and off. On April 21st, the team reassigned Grunfeld, effectively firing him from his GM role. And around the same time, New York rallied, rattling off 6 wins in their last 8 games, including a huge comeback victory over the Heat. Camby was getting more minutes, Sprewell was playing great off the bench, and Ewing's Achilles wasn't 100%, but by the end of the season he was well enough to at least play. So the Knicks are an 8 seed because of unusual circumstances, but they came into this series with a ton of momentum. Does that mean Van Gundy's job is secure? Absolutely not. Listen to how Madison Square Garden president Dave Checketts responded to sideline reporter Jim Gray during this game.
So if he loses today, he can count on coming back?
Well, I didn't say that. I said everybody's on, what I've been saying, and I mean is everybody's really on notice.
So yeah, despite having pushed a 1 seed to its limit, a miss here might cost Van Gundy his job. But the Knicks lineup on the floor right now shows how their coach has tried to outrun his doom. These aren't New York starters. The Knicks start games with 2 true big men, Kurt Thomas at power forward alongside Ewing. But Van Gundy's had success going smaller, moving Larry Johnson up to the 4 spot and playing the more guard-like Sprewell at the 3. Speedier lineups like that one have generated huge runs in this series, including today. And the Knicks have been particularly fast-paced when the high-flying Camby replaces the injured Ewing at center. But make no mistake, this is still Eastern Conference basketball in the 90s. This game, like several before it, has been a battle of the familiar franchise centers, though not always directly. Ewing has gone to work against P.J. Brown, too, and Brown's been pretty productive himself.
P.J. Brown has been Mr. Dependable for the Miami Heat today.
And when New York's gone small, Zoe has seen a lot of matchups against his former disgruntled co-star, Johnson. Ewing has the most points of any Knick, despite searing pain in his Achilles. He even delivered the tough offensive rebound and clutch free throws that cut Miami's lead to 1 40 seconds ago. Mourning leads his team in scoring, just like he has every game this series. And he's playing without his goggles despite a fractured eye socket. Zoe's the last person to score a field goal in a game that hasn't had a lot of them, and it was a big one with just under 2 minutes to go. And it's a good thing the centers have made stuff happen, because the perimeter players have not produced for either team. Sprewell and Houston are New York's primary wing scorers. Both have been pretty inefficient overall. Hardaway is the clear Robin to Mourning's Batman, but this has been a bad series for Tim. And today, despite having some big moments, he's been less like Robin and more like, I don't know, the Penguin, and never at a worse time than this slippery flippered play just moments ago. Jamal Mashburn, who's been similarly weak all series, has played well today, but ceded most of his minutes to the newcomer, Porter, who's been off. That said, Porter made this moment happen, for better or worse. The Knicks called their last timeout to set up a play down 1 with 20 seconds left. But Riley's defense completely ruined it. blowing up the two-man game between Sprewell and Ewing. With time winding down, Sprewell was going to have to create a tough shot head-to-head versus Porter, but Porter knocked the ball out of bounds. It might have gone out off Sprewell, it's hard to tell, but with no review, the call was Knicks ball. And now they've had a quick breath to set back up and call a new play. Van Gundy called for triangle, an old set Riley used to run, and you can see Riley frantically communicating that to his defense as Charlie Ward inbounds the ball to the curling Houston. But with the little Hardaway guarding the inbound and Houston getting a step past Dan Marley, the Knicks are going to get a look here. This shot could make them the second ever 8 seed to beat a 1 seed. It could abort what is supposed to be Miami's breakthrough year in the power vacuum left by MJ's retirement. If Houston misses, it'll end the springtime sprint of a team that struggled for most of this shortened lockout season, and it'll probably make his coach the next high-profile Knicks firing, a fate intensified by the fact that it would come at the hands of his mentor and his brother. No matter what happens, it'll be a dramatic close to the third chapter of a vicious rivalry between familiar foes who always push each other to the limit. Okay, let's see what happens. Welcome to a moment in history.
Out in Houston. Houston ducks under. Got it! With 8 tenths left.
Hey, thanks a lot for watching Rewinder. If you want to learn even more about that LJ-Zoe feud, there's an episode of Beef History about it. And if you want to rewind even further in history, you can learn about Michael Jordan's final shot as a Bull here.